Okay, so you know those stories, right? Like some stories just they really stick with you. You can't get them out of your head.
Oh, yeah.
They make you wonder what happened. Like how did this end?
Right.
I feel like that about this case in Sandy Springs, Georgia. It was more than a decade ago now, but it's this case with a 5-month-old baby named Angel Pantoja.
Oh, wow.
He was found unresponsive
Oh, gosh.
in his babysitter's care, and it's really a puzzle. What happened after is a real puzzle. It's a tragedy, a disappearance, a search that is still going on.
Yeah, it's one of those stories that has so many layers to it, and it's so sad. And
Yeah.
you're right, it just stays with you. I mean, a 5-month-old baby, come on.
It's just really sad.
Yeah. So we're going to do a deep dive today on the search for Caris E. Ayala. She was the babysitter in this case.
Right.
And, we're going to lay out like the timeline, the major developments, and also try to understand why this has stayed in the public consciousness for so many years. It's been so long.
Right. And I think that's one of the reasons that this case is so interesting to me is because it has really captivated people and stayed in the public eye.
Yeah.
So we've been looking at a lot of different sources for this one. We've got news reports going all the way back to when it happened, and then also some more recent stuff. Like there was a blog post by this security company, Vet First Security.
Okay.
And it's interesting because, you can tell that this is something that people really care about, like in the community. They want to see justice done in this case.
Oh, for sure.
So what we really want to do today is give everybody a clear picture of, what are the facts, what happened,
Right.
what made this case so, prominent, and also where are we now in the search for Ayala and her husband.
Absolutely.
So like we always do, let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Let's go to the day that everything changed.
Okay, so that was October 2nd, 2012,
Okay.
at Caris E. Ayala's apartment in Sandy Springs.
Right.
And so on that day, the authorities, they got this call from Ayala, and she's reporting that 5-month-old Angel Pantoja, who she was babysitting, is unresponsive.
It's just awful to even think about getting a call like that.
It's horrific.
As a parent, as a human being, just a tiny baby.
Of course.
And so, of course, the situation escalated very quickly. Angel was taken to Children's Hospital in Atlanta.
Right?
And that's where doctors discovered that he had a severe head and brain injury.
Yeah, it was, right away a very critical situation. He was put on life support.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult that must have been for his family.
Absolutely heartbreaking. And,
Yeah.
they kept him on life support hoping for a miracle. But sadly, we know from, reports that came out later that he was actually taken off of life support on October 26, 2012.
What a horrible outcome.
It's just devastating for everyone who knew him and loved him.
Yeah, and I think when that happened, the investigation understandably shifted, more towards Ayala. And so we know that at first she did cooperate. She spoke with detectives and she gave them a statement about what happened.
That's right. Yeah, she initially, was giving them information, but things took a very sharp turn.
Yeah.
A week later,
Okay.
she was scheduled to have this follow-up interview with detectives on October 9th, 2012,
Okay.
but she just didn't show up.
She didn't go.
Nope. And from that day on, there hasn't been a single confirmed signing of her or any, reliable communication.
So nobody's heard from her.
Nothing. It's like she just vanished
She disappeared.
completely.
And that, of course, made law enforcement very suspicious.
Of course it did. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's a huge red flag right there.
And so a warrant was issued for her arrest in Fulton County pretty quickly, and the initial charge was cruelty to children.
Right. And that's because, the injuries that little Angel had were so severe that they had to, they had to take that step.
It's unimaginable.
It is.
So the days go by and she's still missing. Weeks go by and then the legal situation changes. So on October 24, 2012, a federal arrest warrant was issued for her.
That's right.
And this was for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution.
Yeah, essentially what that means is, if somebody crosses state lines to try and get away from charges or, being prosecuted, then the feds can get involved.
Wow.
So, this really shows how much bigger the search was getting.
Right. It went from just a local thing to a nationwide thing at that point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it tells you that they really thought she was trying to run away and they were taking it very seriously.
Right. And then with Angel's death, the charges were even more serious.
Yeah.
They issued a felony murder warrant for Ayala.
That's right. And, for anyone who might not be familiar with that term, felony murder basically means that somebody dies while another felony is being committed.
Right.
So in this case, it would be, the alleged cruelty to the child.
Right.
And to make matters worse, Captain Steve Rose from the police, he actually said some pretty disturbing things at the time.
Oh.
He said that the baby's injuries looked like they were from being shaken violently or, like a really bad whiplash.
Oh my gosh.
This really, it points to just how violent this poor little baby's last moments must have been.
It's heartbreaking.
It is.
So we have Ayala, who has disappeared.
Right.
But she didn't go alone.
Yeah, that's a really important point. She wasn't by herself.
Right. So tell me about that. Who did she go with?
Okay, so investigators, they pretty quickly started to believe that she was traveling with her husband, Noe Castillo Ramirez.
Okay, so he became another important part of this investigation.
Absolutely, and they issued a local arrest warrant for him as well.
Okay.
But his charge was different. It was for hindering the apprehension of a felon.
So they thought he was helping her get away.
Right, exactly. They thought he was actively helping her avoid the police. So now it wasn't just one person they were looking for, it was two.
Wow, this is a really complicated case.
It is.
So let's talk about who exactly the police are looking for.
Okay.
Can you give me some details about Ayala?
Sure, so Ayala is described as a Hispanic female, and her date of birth is September 5th, 1985.
Okay.
So at the time, she was about 5'4" and weighed around 140 pounds, black hair, brown eyes.
Okay.
And, we found out from the Vet First security blog that she's actually used a bunch of different aliases like Caris Ayala Rivas, Caris Ayala, even Caris E Ayala Rivas.
Wow, she's really been trying to stay hidden.
Yeah, it seems like it.
And I understand that there's a special number that law enforcement uses to track people like her.
Right, that's the NCIC number, the National Crime Information Center number. And hers is W146090217.
Okay, so that's how they keep track of her across the country.
Exactly. It's like a unique ID for wanted individuals.
And what about her husband? What do we know about him?
Okay, so Castillo Ramirez is Hispanic male, born April 25th, 1980. He's taller than her, about 5'10", weighs around 160, black hair, brown eyes as well.
So they have a pretty good idea what they look like.
Yeah, but the search goes beyond just, what they look like.
Right, because they could have gone anywhere.
They could be anywhere in the world.
Exactly, and the authorities were thinking that they might have some connections to other countries, right?
Yeah, they thought they might have ties to places like El Salvador, Guatemala, or Mexico.
Okay.
And they were worried that they might try to leave the U.S. or, maybe they'd already left.
Right, that makes things even more complicated.
Oh, absolutely. It really does. I mean, international borders, it's a whole other ballgame.
Right, and they had a vehicle too, right?
Right. They were last seen in a black Toyota T100 pickup truck.
Okay.
And the Georgia license plate was BKM 9384.
Okay.
And that was a really important detail. They put that out everywhere, hoping somebody might remember seeing that truck or the people in it.
Right, I remember seeing those missing posters with the truck.
Yeah, exactly.
And the FBI got involved pretty early on, too.
That's right. The Sandy Springs Patch and other news outlets reported that the FBI got involved very early on, and this is a really important detail. They consider Caris Ayala to be armed and dangerous.
That's a big deal.
Oh, it means they're not messing around. They really think she could be a threat.
And that's not something they say lightly.
Absolutely not. It means that they think she's a fugitive, but also that she could be a danger to anyone who comes across her.
Right. So if anyone sees her, they should not approach her.
Absolutely not. The best thing to do is just call the police right away.
Get in touch with law enforcement.
Exactly. And the fact that the FBI got involved meant that they could bring a lot more resources to the search and, really step up their investigation.
Right. They have a lot more capabilities than a local police department.
Absolutely.
So, along with the official investigation, there was also a big push to get the community involved.
Oh, yeah.
The police wanted everyone to help.
Right. They really wanted to get everyone on board.
So how did they try to do that?
Okay, so the Sandy Springs Police and the Vet First Security blog, they really urged anybody with any information, even if it seems small or unimportant, to just come forward.
Anything at all could be helpful.
Right? They were saying, every little detail could be a piece of the puzzle. It could be what they need to solve this case.
Right, even if you just saw the truck driving by.
Exactly, anything at all.
So if someone did have some information, who should they contact?
Okay, so they said to contact Detective Steve Rose. He was one of the detectives on the case.
Okay.
His number is 770-551-3313. Or Detective Mike Bailey.
Okay.
His number is 770-551-3308.
Okay.
And they also said, if you want to stay anonymous, you can call Crime Stoppers.
Right.
At 404-577-TIPS, that's 8477, or you can do it online.
Right.
So they really wanted to make it as easy as possible for people to come forward.
They really wanted to find these people.
They did.
And, during all of this, we also heard from Angel's mother, Asil Carmona.
Oh, yeah.
And she said that she had really trusted Ayala.
Oh, wow.
Like, she never thought this could happen.
That's awful. I mean, she probably feels so betrayed.
Right, like you said earlier, just heartbreaking.
It is.
And it just reminds us that, this isn't just a story in the news. Right.
There are real people involved, and their lives have been changed forever.
Absolutely. It's important to remember that behind every case, every investigation, there are real people who are suffering.
Right. And so as we finish up this deep dive, we need to make sure that everybody knows where things stand now.
Right.
Because this has been going on for a long time.
It has. And, from everything we've been able to find out up to February 2025,
Okay.
Caris E. Ayala is still out there.
It's been over a decade.
I know, it's crazy, right?
Since October 2012.
Unbelievable.
And they still haven't found her.
Nope. The warrants are still active. The one for felony murder, the one for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. They're all still active.
Wow.
And the warrant for Noe Castillo Ramirez for helping her get away, that's still active too.
So the police haven't given up.
And not at all. They're still looking for any leads that might come up. They haven't forgotten about this case.
So we've talked a lot about Caris Ayala and the death of baby Angel Pantoja.
We have.
And some really important things stand out to me.
First, we have this horrific event, the injuries that this innocent child suffered, and then him dying.
Right. It all started with that terrible tragedy.
And then right after, Ayala disappears.
Right. She vanishes.
And now we have this huge effort to find her and her husband.
Exactly. The local police, the state police, the FBI, they're all working together to try and find them.
Right. And this is something that, our listeners can help with.
Yeah.
Even after all these years,
absolutely,
people can still help.
Right. Even if you think the information you have is small or insignificant, it could be what they need.
Right. It could be the missing piece of the puzzle.
Exactly.
And maybe it could finally bring some justice for Angel Pantoja and his family.
That's what we all hope for.
So I want everyone listening to think about this. We've got these cases that go on for years and years.
Right.
They're really complicated, and they affect so many people.
They do.
The families, the communities. Everybody feels it when something terrible like this happens.
It's like a ripple effect.
And then when the people who did it are still out there, it's like there's no closure.
It's like an open wound.
And I think that's what makes these cases so fascinating and so frustrating at the same time.
Yeah, you want to see justice done, but it's like, will it ever really happen after all this time?
That's the question, right?
It is.
And I think that's something that we all need to keep thinking about.